never stop this fight until we bring them down on their knees and they ask for forgiveness from us.
So his social life has been sacrificed for Robert Mueller.
I didn't have a social life before this.
A former staffer on President Trump's campaign is alleging the president kissed her on the mouth without her consent, an accusation the White House calls absurd. Alva Johnson, who worked as the director of outreach and coalitions in Alabama, says the sexual misconduct happened at a rally in Tampa in 2016. In her lawsuit filed today, Johnson also says the campaign discriminated against her by paying her less than her white male colleagues, a claim Trump's re-election campaign denies.
It is within our grasp to leave with a deal on the 29th of March.
While Prime Minister Theresa May is staying the course on Brexit, opposition leader Jeremy Corbyn told his own Labour Party that if their amendments to the government's Brexit deal are rejected in Parliament on Wednesday, Labour will support another solution to avoid a Tory Brexit, a second EU referendum. American case law may be written by people who are long since dead, but the Supreme Court held today that judges need to issue their decisions while they're still alive. Judge Stephen Reinhart died 11 days before the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals issued a decision with his name on it. In finding Reinhart's vote didn't count, the Supreme Court said, quote, "Federal judges are appointed for life, not for eternity." Ahead of this week's summit between President Trump and North Korea's leader Kim Jong-un in Hanoi, Vietnamese police are clamping down. They've deported an Australian Kim Jong-un impersonator. Howard X says authorities told him his visa was invalid.
But the real reason was born with a face looking like Kim Jong-un. That's the real crime.
Venezuela's self-proclaimed interim president, Juan Guaidó, met today with Colombia's conservative president, Iván Duque, and U.S. Vice President Mike Pence to talk about taking, quote, concrete steps to force out Nicolás Maduro. The conversation follows a weekend of violence and turmoil. On the Venezuela-Colombia border, clashes between anti- and pro-Maduro groups left almost 300 injured. The National Guard and pro-government paramilitaries blocked trucks carrying U.S. shipments of food and medicine from crossing into Venezuela. 2 of those trucks ended up on fire. Guaidó has been urging the Venezuelan military to turn against Maduro, and at least 150 guardsmen did just that this weekend, deserting their posts and crossing over to Colombia. But the vast majority of the armed forces are still loyal to Maduro, as are the colectivos, groups of armed civilians on the front lines of the fight to crack down on the opposition. We spoke to members of a colectivo that went to the border to help block the shipments of aid.
Buenos días, muchachos. Bueno, la labor de hoy es igual que todos los días. Ya saben lo que tienen que hacer.
The colectivos have about 200 to 300 active members on the border with Colombia. This small faction calls itself Los Centauros, or the Centaurs.
Que no haya personas infiltradas en nuestro territorio, ya que últimamente, como se ha visto, ustedes han visto drones por ahí, han visto personas que no son allegadas a esta zona. Cualquier cosa, ustedes lo comunican y nosotros tomaremos las acciones debidas para eso.
Álvaro and Pedro, not their real names, have been with the colectivos for 7 years. They say it's not really aid they're worried about, it's military intervention.
La milicia también está armada, nosotros también estamos armados y vamos a colaborar conjuntamente para que no se dé la invasión a Venezuela. Nosotros estamos con nuestro presidente.
Colectivos started out as neighborhood communes, some of them armed, that got support from the government of Hugo Chavez. As Venezuela has descended into chaos under Maduro, he's relied on them more and more to work as the government's strong arm. intimidating and even killing members of the opposition.
A nosotros nos dan un curso, nos llevan un mes para el monte, ahí nos enseñan cómo es la rutina, cómo es la vaina. En un momento nos entrenan, ponerle un mes, 2 meses, después nos sueltan a la calle. Lo que nosotros nos dan, ahorita nos están dando son 9.
¿Ya has matado?
Me toca hacerlo, obligado, así no lo quiera. No te puedo decir cuántos son, pero yo sé que hay demasiado.
Alvaro and Pedro say they took on the jobs because the bad economy left them with no other option.
A mi criterio, te le digo que es mejor que ella porque la gente está muriendo de hambre ya del otro lado. Cuando yo vengo, por eso es que me metí en esto. Tengo 3 hijos y están muriendo de hambre. Si no consigo la comida, me toca que matar y joder. Eso es lo que hago yo, ¿entiendes?
Even as the forces allied against Maduro have pushed his government to the brink, the colectivos' support for him has not wavered. They know that as soon as Guaidó becomes president, their lives are at risk. For them, it's Maduro or nothing.
Habiendo otro gobierno, como sabemos, empezaría la cacería, empezarían a buscar a todas esas personas que estuvieron apoyando al gobierno. Entonces nos tocaría a nosotros escondernos, cruzar otro país. Estamos defendiendo este gobierno hasta la muerte. Es un juramento que nosotros hicimos al entrar en esta institución y debemos cumplirlo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Acting Attorney General.
A job that comes with the responsibility to protect the special counsel until his work is complete.
The Acting Attorney General's office responded. This letter, which I asked now to be admitted to the record, which, by the way, didn't do their job, and we'll probably hear a lot about that today.
How about if you give calendar to every number that doesn't just say rust fragment? Because
okay.
It's going to be...
So don't assign any numbers to rust fragments, but still type that entry in.
Yeah.
Adrienne Cobb works as an archaeology lab assistant, putting measurements made in the field into a digital archive. But you also do some other things at work.
Yeah, I try and keep up on the political news as it's happening.
Does anyone here care about that? It's a fair
I mean, my boss,
right?
yeah, she's cool. As long as I get my work done, it's fine.
Really? She never says, like, you're watching a little too much C-SPAN at work?
I'm listening to it and working.
Every time an illegal alien causes harm...
She's multitasking because she's obsessed not with C-SPAN, but with Robert Mueller, President Trump, the Russians, and everything special counsel. She boils down the bulk of related news into a weekly recap that goes out to 75,000 subscribers. You know the obvious connection people would make to what you're doing here and what your job is, right? You like digging.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've never thought of it like that, but I guess that makes sense.
Okay. Living at home gives Cobb time to dig. Here, there's just her family, her dog, and her computer. The real action happens online, where she sifts through a week's worth of articles and legal filings, looking for any new revelations.
So over the week, I put all the links that I found to anything that even might be slightly relevant or interesting in Evernote. I go through all of those by topic, and I read them and try and summarize the most important parts in a Google Doc, in Reddit format, and in a blog post that will be separate for people who aren't on Reddit or don't like Reddit. These are basically like mini book reports, a bunch of little book reports strung together.
Cobb isn't breaking stories or developing sources, which is why she doesn't call herself a journalist, just an aggregator who can help people stay on top of the latest reporting. As the Mueller probe has expanded, her recaps have too. They can reach up to 5,000 words.
So much stuff happens in a week that a lot of people don't have time to catch it all. And what I'm trying to do is put it all in one place, simplified form, so that they can go through and see if they missed anything. The weekends, I try not to do anything else. I try my best to get it out Monday morning.
Really?
Yeah.
So the social life has been sacrificed for Robert Mueller.
I didn't have a social life before this, so.
She posts to a subreddit for other Mueller obsessives called Keep Track. She doesn't know how many people read them. Reddit doesn't tell her. Cobb thinks her audience skews liberal, though she tries to stay neutral.
On Twitter, I definitely put my own reaction into it, but for the recaps, I want it to be something that even like just a conservative could read and get value out of it and not be turned off by me putting my opinions in it.
While Cobb avoids speculating, she does include the guesswork of others.
Well, okay, one thing that I really want to know is that mystery unknown foreign company who's involved in a Supreme Court fight over Mueller's grand jury subpoena. One journalist noted that the name of the company, it was redacted, but they noticed that the width of the redaction fit about 22 to 27 characters long, and Qatari Investment Authority fits within that character length.
To see how deep in the Mueller weeds she could get, we quizzed her. Peter Smith.
Peter Smith was a GOP operative. He was trying to find Hillary Clinton's emails. Felix Sater, he was involved in trying to build a Trump Tower in Moscow. Paul Erickson, he's often described as a GOP operative, and he somehow befriended Maria Butina, who is now admitted to being a Russian spy. Randy Credico. Roger Stone said Randy was his connection to WikiLeaks. Credico says, no, that's not true. Roger Stone threatened him. He threatened to kill his dog, take his dog away, his therapy dog.
So, a man with a Nixon tattoo on his back is threatening a comedian from New York that he's going to steal his dog because of some blonde weirdo that's living in the Ecuadorian embassy in London.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. Following these Byzantine connections fills a void in Cobb's life. She started after she kicked another addiction. So when was the last time you did heroin?
3 or 4 years, 3 years ago. I don't like AA or NA. I don't keep track of a sober date. It's just sort of.
Yeah,
3 years ago.
You're just done.
Yeah.
You don't do it anymore. You vape. You don't have any other addictions at the moment.
No.
But you have an addiction to the Mueller investigation.
I guess
right?
you could say that.
It's kind of a shift, isn't it?
Yeah, but I mean, I think part of being sober is keeping your mind busy. The times I felt I was always relapsed was when I had a long period of time with nothing to do. So I just try and stay busy now.
But you don't worry at this point if there are times when you're not busy.
No, I don't even think about it anymore.
So if Bernie Sanders becomes president, you're not going to become a heroin addict again.
No. And I'll just go back to archaeology or whatever my next project is.
Good. The special counsel's report and whatever comes after won't be the end for Cobb.
I don't know. I'll keep going until I feel like I know everything that is possible to know about that.
So the Mueller report does not mean, when that is delivered, does not mean the end of this.
No, not necessarily.
But it might.
It might. I mean, I have a feeling that there's going to be prosecutions ongoing. I mean, he spawned a lot of investigations in SDNY and all these other areas, so I feel like it's going to keep going even after his report is out.
It won't feel, when this actually drops, that, you've just broken up with somebody.
No.
So you go into something else.
I can't say when I'm going to feel like it's done, but when I do feel like it's done, I'll pick something else out.
Last week's Vatican summit on preventing abuse in the Catholic Church was supposed to show the world it was finally taking the crisis seriously.
Faccio un sentito appello per la lotta a tutto campo contro gli abusi di minori nel campo sessuale come in altri campi, da parte di tutte le autorità e delle singole persone, perché si tratta di crimini abominevoli che vanno cancellati dalla faccia della terra.
190 bishops and cardinals attended the conference, which opened with speeches from Pope Francis, who, nearly 3 decades after sex abuse scandals first broke, promised stronger guidelines and policies to protect children and punish abusers. Large parts of the summit took place behind closed doors, out of sight of the media. Church leaders heard from a few carefully selected survivors. but dozens more victims of clerical sexual abuse and their supporters held vigils and demonstrations around Rome.
I stand with my brothers and sisters from across the world. We will never stop this fight until we bring them down on their knees and they ask for forgiveness from us.
Mark Rossi is a Pennsylvania state representative who says he was groomed and raped by a priest, starting when he was 13 years old. The Vatican is using this conference as an opportunity to show that it's taking sex abuse seriously. Do you think that it could mark a turning point for the Catholic Church?
When I hear that we're having a meeting to have another meeting, to me, that's just kicking the can down the road. What I need to see is true policy changes that will actually protect children. And until I see that, I'm not really going to believe too much from what's coming out of the Vatican.
What are the consequences for the Catholic Church if they continue with these conferences and they don't have the right outcome or they don't do what you want them to do?
I think the people, not only the United States, but the world understand the hypocrisy that they will not return to this church, that many even today believe that we don't need an institution to love our faith, to talk to God, to pray to God. They will simply cease to exist.
So they'll destroy themselves?
They will internally, by their own self-protectionism, destroy themselves.
The summit was the church's way of trying to rebuild trust with the faithful. Pope Francis handed out a list of 21 guidelines to the bishops and cardinals. But for an institution that's been grappling with this scandal since the 90s, the suggestions were oddly simplistic, including creating a handbook for members of the clergy on what to do when a sex abuse case emerges, using trained and expert people to deal with victims, and asking all clergy to tell law enforcement about accusations. The organisers, including the Archbishop of Chicago, Cardinal Blaise Cupich, insisted that the conference was a success. Cupich pointed to a proposal he introduced for a new framework that would allow both the church and lay people to investigate misconduct in their individual churches first, before referring the case to the Vatican. You say that you need to change the hearts and minds of bishops, but isn't it in 2019 too late to be doing that? That should have happened a long time ago. Now what you need to be focusing on is restoring the faith of your followers.
Right. Well, and it is very important that we do that. But I would say this very difficult issue, this horrendous problem of children being abused in society as well in the church, is not on the front pages and the news of a lot of countries in different parts of the world. That's not true anymore.
This crisis is the biggest one that the church has faced since the Reformation. And with less and less people going to church and turning up to church, is modernization the only way forward for you? That is, removing the celibacy law applied to the parish clergy and allowing women to become priests.
I do believe that we cannot make decisions solely out of self-interest in terms of increasing the numbers of people who come to church. The pathway forward is not to do things simply that are going to make us more palatable to people, but our first job is to make sure that children are safe. I believe that if we get that right, things will fall into place.
That kind of official optimism doesn't always ring true with the rising generation of American worshippers. These students from the University of St. Thomas in Minnesota are taking part in a Catholic studies program in Rome. Do the people in the church that you go to, or your mum's church, do you think that they believe that the sex abuse scandals has had an impact on people's faith in the church?
Absolutely.
And worshipping? Really?
Absolutely, and it's
you all agree.
It's
You're all
heartbreaking.
nodding.
Yeah.
Within our own, I don't know, at least within
It's
my own
heartbreaking,
family,
yeah.
you see it.
Really?
Yeah.
What have you seen in your family?
Well, questions coming up and and having these conversations. I know for myself, it was. I think it broke when we were seniors in high school.
Yeah.
The first kind of round of, and I know for myself, I was like, how can you keep going to church?
Yeah.
When you know these things have happened.
Do you think that the Vatican has dealt with the sex abuse crisis as well as it could have done?
The delayed reaction to what has happened has been frankly embarrassing. And I would also say that pretending that a 4 or 5 day summit, whatever it is enough to properly address what has happened is also a ludicrous idea. And in response to the victims, a few nice apologies and some pleasant sentiment certainly doesn't do much. And then having some of the people who have been proven to be guilty, merely defrocked is frankly not enough.
As novelists go, Marlon James is considered pretty highbrow. A Brief History of 7 Killings won the Booker Prize in 2015. So the literary world did not expect him to follow that with an epic fantasy series.
George R.R. Martin emails me. He's like, I heard you're writing an African version of my book. I said African Game of Thrones as a joke. I said it in this magazine which I thought very few people read. He did say it was cool though, and he invited me to do a reading in Santa Fe.
The whole trilogy is influenced by his obsessive research into ancient African storytelling.
Somebody's gonna pick this up and go, this ain't no fucking Westeros. Black Leopard, Red Wolf, it's a novel, but it was also my chance to just geek the hell out on everything. It's a storyteller telling stories about stories. There are witches, there are anti-witches, we're leopards, we're cheetahs, we're hyenas. There are characters who completely make you change reality.
The leopard jumped, but she grabbed him by the neck, heaved him off the floor, and flung him against the wall. Her eyes blue, her eyes white, her eyes crackling like lightning.
One of the things about this trilogy is that it's 3 different witnesses telling the same story. With a lot of fantasy, good stays good and evil stays evil. Whereas what I was writing, people shift, people change allegiances, people change minds, and people, are not what you think they are.
The child is dead. There is nothing left to know.
I am an exhaustive plotter. I have books and books and charts and post-its all over the wall about what I think should happen in a book, and then I promptly ignore all of it. Because I think characters should surprise. Like, a good writing day for me is me saying at the end of the day, man, I didn't see that coming. I'm also really sort of narratively promiscuous. Character A, we started the book together. It was real. It was good. But then character B is so hot. When I follow that character who sort of walks past the screen and then vanishes, that's what leads to the novel. That's what leads to a better novel.
My name was my father's possession, so I left it by his gate.
Tracker who ends up telling the story was never meant to be the character.
Will you hear more, Inquisitor?
I've never understood the whole idea of reading books from people who are just like you. And this is where a lot of literary fiction show kind of their bullshit towards genre fiction. I can see it being a convention to sell books, but I think it's also a convention used to lock away people who are writing really great novels, regardless of what they are. There are lots of queer characters in this book, and I think some people thought I was, trying to score some intersectionality points. And it turns out that actually came from the research. Queerness and non-binariness and gender fluidity and sexual fluidity and even plural pronouns. These are all stuff that ancient Africa had been doing for thousands and thousands of years. None of that was new. They end up making a contemporary statement, which is true, but it actually, that's all the old shit.